With the release of the new Fortnite season, everyone is rushing to reach Unreal within a short amount of time. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the best way to reach Unreal, whether you're a new player trying to get it for the first time or you've done it before. Throughout this video, I'm going to be giving you guys fighting tips, tips on surviving through all stages of the game, and new changes made for this season. So the first thing I'm going to go over is the new map changes. So on the left side of the map, Ritzy Rivera has been replaced by the Underworld and Grimgate. In the Underworld, you'll expect to see the new Hades boss, which drops the aspect of Siphon, which is pretty much just a medallion, as well as a mythic Harbinger SMG. And at Grimgate, you can find Cerberus, who drops the new mythic Gatekeeper shotgun, and also the aspect of agility. And as we go towards the center of the map, Ruined Reels has turned into Restored Reels and has more loot. And finally, on the bottom right side of the map, Hazy Hillside has been replaced by Mount Olympus and Brawler's Battleground. And at Mount Olympus, you can find Zeus, who drops the new Huntress DMR mythic and the aspect of speed. At Brawler's Battleground, you can find Ares, who drops the new mythic AR and the aspect of combat. And now that you know all the map changes, I'm going to tell you how to find a new drop spot if yours has been affected. Since I used to land the Windmill House next to Ritzy Rivera, I have to find a new spot that gives me the same exact loot and mats. What I recommend to do is find a spot off of a POI, which you can push after looting up. To know if your drop spot is good, you need to have full wooden brick, a full loadout, and multiple barrels to conserve shields. Also make sure there's only 1 to 3 people contesting you, or else the spot's probably saturated. To find a good drop spot, you can use Fortnite.gg to see how many barrels, ammo boxes, vending machines, and other useful things that a location has. The new guns are extremely OP this season, as the new AR is just like a striker AR but shoots a little bit slower. The new shotgun is basically a pump shotgun, but it shoots faster than attack. The new DMR is pretty powerful, but it does have a slow fire rate, meaning that it's probably going to be good for Surge. The mobility is limited this season, as Crashpad Juniors, Grapple Blades, and Shockwaves have been vaulted. The forms of mobility this season are the new Underworld Dash, the Wings, and also regular Impulse Grenades. Epic might balance the loot pool this season, but as of right now, I recommend to carry the new guns and also especially the new shotgun, because you can just hop into boxes. Be aware that the shotgun only has 3 shells, but if you reload, it reloads all of them at the same time. This season, Epic has made it harder to reach Unreal because you need to take damage or give damage to get a percentage. And that basically means that camping has been nerfed. But that makes it the perfect opportunity to get better at the game and actually learn how to play ranked. Now in the early game, you want to know how to pick fights correctly, as you don't want to be the one getting third-partied. You should be able to loot up quickly, and after you get a decent amount of mats and heals, then you can start to third-party people. Also make sure that your fights are less than a minute, because in this period of the game, third parties are way more prevalent. A good thing to remember is that the Green River can give you 3 Underworld dashes, which you can use to exploit into boxes or just rotate around. What's broken about this is that you can hold it for the whole game without using one, and you can also negate fall damage. Cerberus' medallion, which is the aspect of agility, gives unlimited dashes, which reappear after every 10 seconds. If you're more of a passive player and you don't like to go for fights in the early game, then you should establish a new loot path that goes with your drop spot. Now the problem with not fighting people in the early game is that you can't practice your off-spawn fights. But what you can do is hop into 1v1 speed realistics or any off-spawn fighting practice maps. As you enter mid-game, people are going to be sitting on dead side or on the edges of the zone, and people are also going to be fighting for medallions. Now for aggressive players, I recommend that you fight people on edge of zone, as they probably just came out of Storm and they're low, or they're just bad at the game. And for more passive and defensive players, I recommend that you just rotate dead side. Now one underrated thing that I use in all of my games is how to tell if someone is bad at the game, and that's by their movement. Usually you can tell if someone's bad at the game if their movement is really robotic. An example of this is literally sitting still in a box and not strafing while box fighting. Another example of this is if they're just walking straight instead of jumping and looking behind while rotating. Another way to tell if a player is bad at the game is if they just box up right away when you start shooting them. If they only make 1 box, then that's pretty much just a green light to push them. Alright, back to ranked. I have to mention that forecast towers have been nerfed from 3 spots on the map to 2, and weapon caches have been replaced by 6 underground vaults that spawn later in the game. Now one thing to note about this season's ranked is that people are going to be much more nervous in game because they're all the same rank. What I mean by this is that people are going to be much more passive because they're trying to rank up. This means that it's going to be way easier to push people knowing that people are going to be nervous. Now during mid-game, fights are mostly going to consist of box fights, which is why you should be practicing box fighting over literally anything. And when picking a fight, make sure you have the advantage of getting damage off first. You can do this by sniping them or getting an AR beam. When fighting a player, always make sure to play patiently and make sure that your guns are always reloaded. As you can see in this gameplay, the player is trying to bait Peterbot out, but instead, Peterbot plays patient and makes the right peek on him. This gives him the advantage of return damage and eventually gets the kill. After getting a kill, always make sure that you make a new box out of hard materials so that you don't get third-partied. This ensures that you can get the loot without stepping into someone else's box. As you approach endgame, you need to make sure that you have the right amount of mats, heals, and ammo. Again, if you need to pick a fight, make sure that it's on the edge of zone. If you're in need of a refresh, one underrated thing that you can do is fake confidence. Most inexperienced players are going to play much more passive and defensively when fighting someone, almost making them look scared. And that's why if you fake confidence to play a little bit more aggressively, but also make sure that you're patient and make the right peaks, you can make the other player think that you're full on everything. Basically what I'm saying is make sure people don't know that you're in shambles, or else they'll just push you. To rotate around the map, for passive players, I recommend that you rotate based on where the medallions are. Coming out of mid-game, people are just going to be fighting over medallions, so just stay opposite of where they are on the map. But for aggressive players that want to fight over the medallions, just make sure that your fights are less than a minute long so that you don't get third-partied. Something that the best players know how to do is when to pull out of a fight. Basically, if a fight is going absolutely nowhere and it's just back and forth damage, you just need to assess where you are and just see if you have the mats and the ammo to go on. Obviously, if you don't, it's just not worth to stay there and just keep fighting, so just get out of there. One key thing to remember during late game is to just play for the win. Even if you're a skilled fighter, it's just not worth dying in endgame and getting less percentage than you could have gotten. Also, a really important thing that the best players do is knowing how to position themselves. Check where you are on the map and see where the next storm circles are, and rotate based off that. Also, make sure to look closely and see if the storm goes uphill or up a mountain. When rotating temporarily, make sure that you box up in wood, but get out of there as soon as you can. Once you're in a set position, make sure that you box up in hard mats. And if you're in a stacked lobby, make sure that you're not in the middle layer, but instead on low ground or high ground. Being in the middle layer makes it easier for you to get pushed from all four sides. If the opportunity is possible, never pass up going on high ground. Getting on high ground from builds or just natural terrain pretty much guarantees you a win. Just make sure to play it right and don't overbuild. And hopefully with everything you learned, you get your first win of the ranked season. Now before you click off the video, I'm going to go over some warm-up routines and also something that you absolutely need to remember. So a warm-up routine is going to depend on what type of player that you are. If you're a player that's already good at PGs, then you should focus more on realistics and box fighting. And if you're a player that's already good at box fighting, focus more on realistics and PGs. Once you become experienced in all levels of fighting, that's when you can make an all-around set routine. For me, my routine consists of 10 minutes of free building, 10 minutes of turtle fights, and 10 minutes of realistics. Now, if you want to take an extra step, what you can do is add on to these routines. For example, I could add 10 minutes of Kovacs aim training if I wanted to. Obviously, make sure you add things to your routine that improves on things that you need to work on. And make sure that you do them every day to build consistency. If your routine feels like it's not improving anything you do, make sure that after a week of at least trying that you switch it up. You can switch up the order of which you do things, like you can do aim practice first and then free building, or you could do like 1v1 realistics and then PGs, something like that. And if you do this consistently for at least 2 to 3 weeks, then you will definitely see progress. Now the last thing that I have to tell you is just play with a positive mindset that you're just trying to improve. If you play with a mindset that you just want to be better than your friends or better than someone else, then that adds ego and ultimately adds pressure to what you're doing. If you play the game just because of motivation that you have that day, then you're just not going to improve. It's all about consistency. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and if this helped you in any way, please leave a like and subscribe and comment down below what I should do next.